Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Linda Bridwell. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Public Service Commission. I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. This is our public comment on the this is one of two public comment meetings that we are hosting on the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity application filed by Louisville Gas and Electric and Kentucky Utilities jointly. So I'm going to go through, and I'm probably going to be up and down with my readers, so I apologize for that. But just to go through briefly a little bit on our meeting agenda tonight, I will make a presentation along with the staff, and this is your opportunity to hear at a very, very high level the details of the proceeding and the basis of the decision. And I want to make sure that you understand that, that this is not a public meeting in the sense that this is not a presentation by the commission going into the details of the case, the details of the application. All of the case record is available online for your review. This is really just a high level of what this proceeding is about and the basis for the decision. At that point, then we can have a Q&A with the PSC staff if you have questions. But again, the staff is not making a presentation on behalf of the utility or the details about what is in the case. The utility is not making a decision or a presentation tonight. The purpose of this meeting tonight is to allow the public to comment on the proceeding. And the PSC commissioners are here tonight to listen to you. And I want to explain a little bit more about that. The PSC has a quasi-judicial role. So in that case, these are parties in the proceeding, and so that's why we can't answer questions about the case. But we can certainly help you if you are interested in learning more about how to make later public comment or review the case record. But with that, I do want to say, and I'll say this 2 or 3 times, just because the commission staff or the utility is not answering questions as part of the meeting tonight does not mean that you shouldn't ask questions. It may be a question that is very valid, that the commissioners have in their own minds that should be raised. It's just, please do not expect an answer tonight. Please do not expect a response tonight. Really, the purpose of the meeting tonight is to listen to the public and get the input on it. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Public Service Commission and then the case itself. So first, the Public Service Commission was created in 1934. As I mentioned, we're a 3-member administrative body. The commissioners are appointed by the governor. They have quasi-judicial duties as determined by the legislature. We regulate more than 1,100 utilities in the state of Kentucky. We're funded by an assessment that are paid by all the utilities based on the utilities' annual gross revenues. And the purpose of the commission is to ensure that every utility shall furnish adequate, efficient, and reasonable service at fair, just, and reasonable rates. So let me say that again. Every utility shall furnish adequate, efficient, and reasonable service at fair, just, and reasonable rates. That doesn't always mean that it's going to be the absolute cheapest rate. The purpose of the commission is, like I said, a quasi-judicial balance of what's appropriate for fair, just, and reasonable rates. So with that, a certificate of public convenience and necessity, that's a big mouthful. We shorten it down at the commission to the acronym CPCN. But all regulated utilities are required to seek a CPCN for new construction of any plant, equipment, property, or facility for furnishing service. That means they have to come to the commission and seek approval for that. The commission, when considering an application to construct a base load electric generating facility, may consider the policy of the General Assembly to foster and encourage use of Kentucky coal for electric utilities serving the Commonwealth. I did want to highlight that. That was an addition in the regulation, the statute in, I believe, 2022. So the utility, when we're looking at this under a certificate of public convenience and necessity, that the utilities have to demonstrate that if the CPCN is granted, the facilities will not result in wasteful duplication. So as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the proceeding. That's fundamentally the basis of the decision. The facilities will not result in wasteful duplication. So there's not an excess of investment in relation to the need. The utilities have to demonstrate that there's a need and that this will not result in wasteful duplication. The utility also has to demonstrate that reasonable alternatives have been analyzed. So have all the alternatives. It doesn't mean that the least cost alternative necessarily has to be the selected alternative. It has to be the most reasonable least cost alternative. So that, again, reasonable is key. So the reasonable least cost alternative. Obviously, sometimes the least cost alternative is to do nothing, but if that's not providing the adequate service, then that is not a reasonable alternative. So a proposal that sometimes costs more than the alternative does not necessarily result in wasteful duplication. So again, these are the standards that the commission is looking at when they're making a decision. So the reason I wanted to bring up this slide, and this is actually a repeat of a slide on a presentation that we did on a case in 2022, is generation retirement, because that is fundamentally what this case is about. So in 2022, the legislature, I may have passed a new statute, a new section of the statute under generation retirement, that the rebuttable presumption against retirement of all fossil fuel fired generating facilities unless there is certain evidence provided by the utility. The commission must find that the utility provided sufficient evidence that the replacement generation is dispatchable, maintains or improves the reliability and resilience of the electric transmission grid, and maintains minimum reserve capacity established by a utility's reliability coordinator. So at any time that a utility is looking to retire a fossil fuel fired generating facility, these criteria must be met before the commission can approve that retirement. LG&E KU were the first utility that sought approval for retirement under this statute. That was case number 2022-402. So the reason I want to mention that is because this case is an extension of that case, in that they fundamentally were asking for the retirement. Some, not all of the retirement was granted, and this is the next step. At that time, during that case, LG&E and KU talked about the what the alternatives were going to be, what they were planning to do. They laid the plan out, but at that time they were asking only for approval of the retirement. So now this is the next step, is asking for the approval of what's going to be the replacement generation for some of the facilities. So in this case, they are asking for approval of the construction, and I apologize. So what LG&E and KU is asking for in this case: the construction of 2 natural gas combined cycle generators. One at Brown would be considered Brown 12, a 645 megawatt in service in 2030 with an estimated cost of $1.383 billion. The second one is the Mill Creek 6 facility. It's a 645 megawatt in service in 2031, estimated cost $1.4 billion. These two are to replace the Brown 3 facility that was scheduled to be retired in 2035, authorized in case 2022-402. The second piece of this, of what they've asked for, is approval of the Battery Energy Storage System, or the BESS, lithium-ion battery. This would be located at Cane Run, a 400 megawatt 4-hour battery system, or 1,600 megawatt hours. This would be in service in 2028, and cost is estimated at $775 million. Now, I am mentioning what the estimated costs are at this point. I want to make sure that everyone in the room understands this case is not a rate case authorizing those expenses. This is what we believe the alternatives are estimated at, but this is approval of the alternative selection. The rates will be dealt with in a future case. So obviously you can't determine if it's the least cost reasonable alternative if you don't at least have an estimate of the cost. So that's why I want to make sure that folks understand this does not mean that the bills are going up in the decision of this case. That will have to be decided in a future rate case. So with that, a couple other things as part of this case. A selective catalytic reduction, or a SCR, for nitrogen oxide emission control. This is at Gent 2. This would be in service in 2028, estimated at $152 million. Then total transmission upgrade costs between the BESS, the Brown 12, and the Mill Creek 6 would be another $74.8 million. The site compatibility certificates for Brown 12, Mill Creek 6, and the Cane Run BESS, and that is, again, a specific certificate laid out in the regulation of site compatibility. There are certain site criteria that must be met. To give you an idea of the other parties in this case, so you have LG&E and KU who are the applicants. We have intervening parties. The Attorney General is by statute is authorized to intervene in any case in front of the Commission. They are the advocate on behalf of consumers in the state of Kentucky. In addition to the Attorney General, the Commission has granted authorization for intervention to Southern Renewable Energy Association, the Kentucky Industrial Utility Customers, the Kentucky Coal Association, jointly Louisville Metro and Lexington Fayette Urban County Government, the Sierra Club, and then a group who's have identified themselves as the joint interveners that include the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, the Kentucky Solar Energy Society, Metropolitan Housing Coalition, and Mountain Association. So any intervening party to the case has the ability to ask questions during the discovery period. They may put on expert witnesses in front of the evidentiary hearing and then file briefs at the end of the case. So they are a legal party to the case, just like the applicant is. So the next steps for our procedure for this case are public meetings, this one tonight, also on July 14th in Louisville at the Jefferson County Community College campus. It will be 6 o'clock in Jefferson County. The hearing itself, the evidentiary hearing for this case in Frankfort, it begins on Tuesday, August 4th, 2025 at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and will continue for several days. Actually, I think is that a Monday? I apologize. Yes, I apologize. I copied over. It's Monday, August 4th. I do have the date right there. The public comments. So this is where I wanted to talk to you tonight. If tonight, after listening to this, if you expected to be able to ask questions about the case and about the details, and you weren't expecting to not be able to get those answered, and you want to wait on your public comments, or you just feel like you don't want to get in front of everyone and ask your comment, you may make public comments tonight. We are recording it. It will be on our website, uploaded usually within about 24 hours, the video. But we also have an opportunity for you to provide public comments at the start of the hearing on August 4th. So at 9 a.m. on August 4th, the first thing the chair will do will go through public comments. You can come to Frankfort and make those comments, or if you contact us, we will send you a link. You have to contact us to send you the link, because we don't want people being able to have the live link in unless you are making those public comments. So we will, you reach out to our office. The link is on our website of how to contact us, but you can make those comments virtually, not just in person. The hearing is open to the public the entire time. The hearing is live streamed, the evidentiary hearing, the entire time. So again, there's a link on our website if you want to watch while the hearing is going on. And then the final order is to be entered by October 28th, 2025, and that is a statutory date that the Commission has to meet. So with that, and I do want to say, in addition to all of the comments, the opportunities for public comment that we talked about, I want to emphasize that you can make as many public comments as you'd like. If you get home tonight and you think, oh, I wish I had said something else, there's an opportunity. We have a public comment mailbox that is monitored by our staff. You can send a comment that way. If you're going to send something electronically, you can send in, there's actually a link on our website, and it takes you to a web box that you just put in the case number, your name, and what your comment is, and it automatically gets uploaded. In addition to that, if you like old-fashioned mail, you can write a letter. I guess I just want to make sure that you can provide multiple comments. If you speak tonight, it doesn't mean you don't get to speak again. You know, if you get home and you're talking to one of your friends or neighbors and they have an opinion about it after you talk to them, and you say you go out and make a public comment that way. So with that, do we have any questions about the proceeding tonight? Yes, ma'am.
I'm very confused about this being the second part of the 2022 case. My understanding was that a natural gas plant was approved in that same case as the replacement generation for the proposed retired coal plant.
Okay, so that case actually only approved the retirement. It did not approve, and I'm looking to the staff to make sure
No, it approved both the retirement of one coal plant and the building of one.
Oh, of Mill 1, yes,
one
okay,
natural gas
yes, I
plant.
apologize, they are telling me Mill 1, and I apologize. that
And
I
my
got that mixed up.
understanding was that these were two completely separate cases.
They are separate cases. This is a continuation of some of the other facilities that were retired in that case. So, am I saying that wrong?
This case has no retirement.
No, this case has no retirement. That case, in addition to Mill 1, the gas that was approved in Mill 1 didn't replace all of the facilities that were being asked to retire. So
There
it
was
was,
one coal plant that was approved to be retired, and it was
two.
two were approved to be retired? Okay, and one gas plant was approved, and the PSC ruled at that time that the second gas plant was not necessary. That was the ruling in that case.
Okay, I'm going to let the staff who
Okay.
have a little more about the details on this. John, I'm going to let you answer this one.
Okay. Mill Creek 5.
Hold it up a little bit closer.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Sorry. Mill Creek 5 was approved. It was to replace Mill Creek 1, which is a coal plant. Does that help?
Well, no, because I was under the understanding that this case had nothing to do with the previous case. I don't understand why I'm hearing that for the first time right now. And why the lawyers that I'm talking to on my phone are also confused.
In
about
the
that
previous
statement.
case, the utility had a long-range plan of which the commission approved part of it and didn't approve the other part. So in the sense that this case is a continuation of the other one, it's the next step in the utility's plan. So the utility wanted to replace the coal unit that was referenced here, round 3, with an NGCC that is proposed in this case. And the commission said, no, we don't want you to retire it. In the previous case, you could go ahead and basically file for it again later. And so this is what the utility is doing now. And in that sense, this case is a continuation. It's not that it's not a continuation necessarily of the plan.
I'm still very confused because I was under the understanding under the new statute that two coal plants couldn't have been approved to be retired if you didn't at the same time replace it with enough generating capacity. So when the one gas plant was approved and the two coal plants were approved, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm not an attorney, so.
Okay, me either. I'm just
But-
trying to understand.
It's my understanding that when a coal plant is retired at that time, when it comes offline, the requirements that were listed up here, those have to be in place. So it's a multi-year process of what this is going to do. Does that make sense?
I mean, the words you're saying make sense, but that's not my understanding of it, so.
Okay.
That's fine, maybe we're not going to get clarity.
And let me make sure that let me make sure, there's a level of detail that we can't go into. So if that's not your understanding, that may be fine, you certainly can raise that at some other point.
That's not my understanding.
Well, again, you can raise that at that point. That's not the point of this meeting, is for you all to provide public comment, not for us to argue with you back and forth about the
Well, I'm not
legalities
trying
of
to
the
argue,
case filing.
I'm just
So,
trying to get clear.
with that, yes, ma'am.
I was just looking to find the place to put public comments on your website. It said, I can find to file a consumer complaint. Is that the same as
No,
public
no.
comment?
So,
Oh, good one, Tina.
so you can send them to the PSC comment at kentucky.gov.
Okay,
If you go on to our website, okay, you found it?
yeah, I found the website, but I can't find the public comment.
Okay.
I can find consumer complaint.
No, not the consumer complaints. If you go into, I believe it's under the communication. I'm trying to remember which the tab is off the top of my head. So, if you ask.
PSC.ky.gov, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Ma'am,
yes.
could you just answer what load these two gas plants are
No, I
replacing?
can't, if you would like to look at the details of the case.
I have, and I'm
So-
confused, so that's why I'm asking, but we'll go back and look again, but I'm trying to figure out what load these two gas plants are replacing if the coal has already been replaced.
Okay. 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 Any, yes, ma'am.
Just easy question. What is the case number? You said we.
Oh, okay, so the case number in this case, and I did not put it, it's 2025 045, or 00045.
So 5 zeros?
No, I'm sorry, 3 zeros and then 45.
Okay, thank you.
And if you send, please make sure that if you do send an email instead of using the web box, that you reference the case number in the email, either in the subject line or down in the email.
Would you say it one more time? Sorry.
The case number
Yeah.
is 2025 00045.
Thank you. Okay, so just, thank you, Brian. So if you hit on the tabs up front under contact us, that's where, okay. Thank
So,
you.
okay. Any other questions? All right. Okay, so with that, I assume everybody's ready to get to the public comments. So I will ask the commissioners to come forward. I'm going to leave this up so that you have, would you rather me leave this slide or the one with the email address? Does it matter? With that, we'll give them just a couple minutes to get settled here. Turned it off. That's not what it's doing again. Sorry about that.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angie Hatton. I'm Chair of the Kentucky Public Service Commission, and I'm joined tonight by Commissioner Mary Pat Regan. We actually have a new commissioner joining us tomorrow who was just appointed. His name is Andrew Wood, but for tonight it's still just us. And as Linda said, tonight's meeting is for the purpose of taking public comment. If you've ever watched a Public Service Commission hearing, which they're live on YouTube as we have the hearings, we do always take public comment at the beginning. And often Commissioner Regan and I will ask a question that we heard at a public comment hearing and see if we can get an answer for that question for you during the hearing when the company's witnesses are being called. So if you have a question, ask it. Our purpose tonight is not to answer them because we don't prejudge cases until we've heard the evidence. So we're not going to be answering questions for you tonight, but we hear your questions, and when we hear the case, those will be additional questions in our mind. So there is a purpose for it. We appreciate everyone who took the time to come out. I'm going to set a 7-minute time limit tonight, and that's so that everyone gets a chance to speak. So if you would adhere to the 7 minutes, we'll ask everyone who comes forward to the microphone to first give your name and address, and then we'll begin the timer. Commissioner Regan's going to handle the timing tonight. And then if you have more to say after that, write us an email, write us a letter, do a virtual comment the day of the hearing, or come in person on the day of the hearing. You can come on that day when we begin at 9 a.m., and the first thing we do is take more public comments. So you'll have plenty more opportunities to give comment. I know that not everyone who signed in tonight necessarily indicated that they wanted to speak. What I'll do is I'll go through the list, and everyone who indicated yes, they wanted to provide comments, I'll call them first, and then I'll ask if anyone else who had said no does now wish to speak, and you'll still get your chance, okay? But let's adhere to the 7 minutes just because that way we get everyone a chance to speak, because some of you may want to speak for 2 hours, and some people may not be able to stay that long. So, but you can write us very long emails and very long letters if you have a lot to say. So let's keep it cordial. We're all going to be respectful to one another, even though there are strong emotions involved in cases like this. But I appreciate everyone caring enough to come out and give your comment, and we are here to listen. So with that, I'll call the first person. Again, give your full name and address when you come up to the microphone, and then we'll begin the timer for 7 minutes. The first person that I had listed was Julia Finch.
Just going to grab this one a little tall. Hi, my name is Julia Finch. I live at 705 Cooper Drive here in Lexington. Is that all the info you need from me? Okay, great. Well, I wanted to speak tonight as a ratepayer. I am a Kentucky Utilities ratepayer. I'm a consumer of electricity. I don't really feel that I'm a customer because I don't really have a choice based on where I live, unless I wanted to, go off grid and figure out how to do that. I don't see that there's much choice. I feel that I'm kind of captive and locked into whatever choices are being made by our utilities. I want to say that what might be considered small or incremental increases will really affect people. They will affect our budgets. They will affect our ability to pay for food for our families, to pay for medicines, medical care, lots of other things. Even $10 to $15 a month is going to be hugely impactful for us that are on tight budgets and have just seen increasing rate costs go up kind of since COVID. So for about 5 years, it feels that we are being squeezed. I want to say that building out fossil fuel facilities is not an option for our future when our planet is burning. And it's incredibly frustrating to hear that we specifically have to look to coal. That is not an option for our planet's future, and it's not an option for Kentuckians. We know that our governor, I hear Governor Beshear all the time talking about building out the green energy sector, building out green jobs. Green job opportunities are not going to come to the Commonwealth unless there is a green energy solution for them once they get here. So I don't see the benefit in trapping ratepayers into paying increasing amounts on their bills to build out facilities that are fossil fuel based. We need to get away from coal. We need to get away from the fossil fuel industries. We don't have that much time left. And I see even adding 10, 15 years onto the life of a plant or a utility, let alone building new, is just sentencing us to something that we cannot abide by. And we know that green industry wants to come here. We know that there's an opportunity to revitalize our industrial sector, but it's going to be based not in the fossil fuels of the past, but in the green energy options of the future. So I see no point in us investing in facilities that are going to become obsolete as we transition into a green energy future. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Next, I have Henry Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah. My name's Henry Jackson, 1000 Rain Court, Lexington. I would urge the Commission on this request that CPCN be postponed until a more balanced energy sourcing can be proposed. This would include a vigorous combination of alternative energy and efficiency upgrades, up to and including significant solar and/or geothermal powering for these proposed data centers, smart grid development, revival of the PPAs for solar farms that were previously approved, and more generous net metering reimbursement rates. It seems there may be a huge misunderstanding by the utility companies that in a renewable energy economy, they will not only survive but thrive in a smart grid network. Their role would be absolutely essential in grid management for balanced loads, essential data analytics, facility development and maintenance, security system, customer service, and regulatory compliance. All of these roles are essential for the transition to a more resilient energy system and leveraging technology to meet modern energy demands. In the accelerating climate crisis, we need to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. The younger you are, the more you have at stake. But rest assured that for our children and grandchildren, the stakes couldn't be higher. Do the right thing. Send the proposers back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Thank you. I should also say that if you brought written comments with you that you would like to submit to the record, you can hand them to our staff or email them or mail them later. Either way, just meant to say that earlier that that's an option if you'd like to do that. The next person I have on my list who indicated they wish to speak is, I apologize, I have the worst handwriting in the world, so no one can read my handwriting. So, but it looks like Matthew
Gedron?
You can say it when you come up. Starts with the G.
My name is Matthew Gitcomb, 333 South Upper Street.
Thank you.
I am concerned by the prospect, as I understand this, of building out this new generation capacity primarily to support the needs of hypothetical data center demand. There should be concrete commitments to build and operate these data centers before we construct generating capacity to support them, so that existing ratepayers are not on the hook for the cost of supporting the infrastructure that would otherwise be unnecessary. If you build it, they will come is not sufficient when ratepayers are on the hook. Furthermore, many data centers and other industries operators have recently sought to power their facilities with renewable energy sources, while this proposal includes almost entirely fossil fuel-based generation. This may well change with the shifting political winds, but it's another reason to have concrete commitments for the use of this generating capacity before we build it. And aside from the question of accommodating these new needs, LG&E and KU should be considering lower cost options for addressing future needs, particularly expanded demand-side management and energy efficiency programs that not only reduce generation needs, but can help consumers lower their energy bills. Thank you.
Kara Cooper.
Hey y'all, I'm Kara. Kara Cooper, 808 Oak Hill Drive, Lexington, 40505. I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you so much. I know that it's not required that you do these in-person meetings for us, and yes, we're very, very thankful. And in the future, if we can know sooner, we can have more people here. Tonight, I'm giving a comment on behalf of myself as a Kentucky Utilities ratepayer. I'm not going to say what I think I was originally planning to say because I'm still very confused. So just wanted to first say that in the 2022 case, LG&E KU requested to build Mill Creek 5, which is currently under construction, and that was the approved replacement for Mill Creek 1, which has been closed, and Mill Creek 2, which is approved to be closed at the end of 2027, although LG&E KU are now saying that they're reconsidering that. Brown 12 was applied for and denied in the last case, so that's the second natural gas plant that they requested in 2022, and that was proposed to be the replacement for both Ghent 2 and Brown 3, which the closures were denied on. So those are two more coal plants that they requested to close that were not approved to be closed. Now they're asking for Brown 12 to be built without asking for the previously applied for retirements. So those Ghent 2 and Brown 3 that were not approved to be closed, the coal plants, they're not asking to close those in this case. And they're no longer applying to close Brown 3 in the future. So I think there's some confusion. I don't know where the confusion is coming from, our end, your end, whatever, around what was happening in the 2022 case and then what's happening in this case. But it is still my understanding that they are not related, and that SB4, which was in effect at the time of the 2022 case, actually prohibited the closure, any closures, without adequate replacement being approved at the time. They had to determine replacement was adequate at the time, or they wouldn't have been able to approve the closure in that case. So that's what I understand to be true. Just wanted to put that in on the record here. In regards to requesting 2 new gas plants to be built and locking us into 40 more years of natural gas, as a ratepayer, that's not what I want to see happening in Kentucky. I don't want to be paying for new gas plants, especially when we haven't seen LG&E KU seriously consider energy efficiency and demand-side management in the ways that it could be used to lower the need for future investments in power plants. It's my understanding that in the most recent LG&E KU IRP, they've said that they need something like 40% more electricity in the next decade or so. Paraphrasing, I don't know. I don't remember the numbers exactly. But they need a whole lot more gas, or a whole lot more capacity, is what they're saying. And they're saying that the reason why they need this new capacity is these proposed data centers. Not that customers, residential ratepayers, anybody who's currently on the books needs more power, but that they're assuming there are going to be a lot of new data centers being built. Like was mentioned earlier, these are proposed data centers, they're not confirmed. We cannot approve 15, 20, 40-year investments into expensive new infrastructure for data centers that we don't even know if we're going to get. What happens when the data centers aren't built? Like most proposed data centers in our country aren't built. It's really scary to think about being on the hook and spreading those costs out over existing customers if data centers are not built and we can't charge them for the energy that they need. In other places, the data centers have to bring their own energy. Why is it that LG&E and KU shareholders should be making a ton of money off of data centers when the data centers could provide their own energy and we would be completely protected from having to pay those costs as ratepayers. It doesn't make sense. I feel like I say this often in cases like this, like, let's not make a decision on this right now. We don't have enough information. Let's not make a decision right now on this, right? Like, let's be more sure before we make 40-year investments into fossil fuels. If it is the case that in case number 2025-00045, there is not a contingency around closing a coal plant, then we don't even have to be thinking about gas. And it seems to me also that time and time again, LG&E KU are not doing their due diligence in looking at alternative options. They're saying natural gas, this is what we should pick, but the modeling is not necessarily robust enough for us to know that that is actually the best choice option. And so we need to make sure, that our utility companies are looking at all of the options and they're making the smartest choices, and that we're doing all we can under the restrictions that we have to move us towards the energy future that we all know we need, right? I know you all are doing the best you can, and that there are all sorts of restrictions, and people are always trying to tell you how to do your job, and that's not a place I'd like to be. So, I feel for you, I feel for the full commission in having to navigate this, but where we have an opportunity to make good long-term decisions that take us from where we are now to the energy system we know we need to have for the future, regardless of the political landscape, we need to be making those decisions. Because like was mentioned earlier too, 40 more years of natural gas is just not in the cards, right? And what happens when we realize that we can't be burning natural gas within this 40-year period, and ratepayers are then on the hook for paying for stranded assets, as we have to then invest in what we should have invested in the first place. So I appreciate you all, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Your time's up. Nailed it. With 10 seconds to spare. Okay. Elisa Owen. Please correct me if I said that wrong.
Good evening. I'm glad to be here, and I really, really appreciate all of you guys coming out, because we need more opportunities for the customers to have your ear. And
Tell us your name real quick and address.
I'm going there. Elisa Owen, and I live at 2005 Eastern Parkway. I am a captive ratepayer of LG&E. But I came tonight because it worked better for me tonight. I am here to ask that we slow way down. And I'm asking that we slow way down because this rush to the California gold rush is happening nationwide. I live in Louisville, and I know that because of my job, which is with the Sierra Club, I know that this is happening all over the country. And it's happening first in Virginia, Northern Virginia. I think their bills have gone up about 30% in the last 5 to 10 years. And it's because they are putting large data centers online and making the ratepayers responsible for the cost. And so what they have started to do in Virginia is asking for the data centers to bring their own energy. New Mexico has also done that. They have asked for green tariff energy so that the companies, the data centers, will not only come with their own energy, but come with energy that long-term will be good, make good economic development sense. I keep hearing the companies say that they have this economic development queue that includes data centers. And this is what they were saying in the IRP hearing where I was present. And they, in their CPCN, which is why I was confused before, they said that the reason they need the 2 new gas plants is for data centers. It was Lonnie Millar that said specifically, no, it was John. It was John that said specifically, our economic development queue, we need this power for data centers. And that's why the CPCN was so different from the IRP that they did earlier in the year. So they came at first with, this is our long-term plan, and then they came with exponentially more energy that they needed quickly. Like Kara, I am very concerned about doing this quickly. There are a couple of things that I want to say specifically that I'd love for the commission to consider before they approve new infrastructure for data centers. The first one of those is a large load tariff. Many jurisdictions have had put in place a specific tariff for large loads. LG&E has proposed one which has two things that I can understand from it. The first is that they have proposed that no matter what, the data center will be paying 80%. But I don't know if that's 80% of the energy they're using or 80% capacity of the 402 megawatts. So I'm not sure what that 80% is, if it's a capacity charge or if it's an energy charge. So I'm concerned about that, because why would they only be paying 80% and not 100% of their energy? Why would 20% be placed on ratepayers that are never going to use any of that energy? All that energy is going to go to that build out. So, and that's from, like I told you, John, I forget his name, Wethington or something. It's the economic development person for LG&E or for PPL. So he said it's all going to be for data centers. So we don't want to pay not 1 red cent for them. We cannot afford it. Our families can't afford it. So one part of the large load tariff was the 80%. The second part of the large load tariff that I found ludicrous was that they were going to try to lock whoever the tenant is, but we don't know who the tenant is, so we can't be sure if the tenant would even be agreeable to this. But they were going to try to lock the tenant into 15 years, which sounds like a pretty good deal, except that the pay down on a gas plant is 40 years. So to have a large load tariff where the pay down is for, they're saying, oh, our tenant will be there for 15 years. Well, what does that do in year 16 for the ratepayers? If we're paying for fossil fuel load, expensive load, that we don't need. So I'm really concerned, the last thing I'll say that I'm really concerned about is I'm concerned about transparency. Because what we have with the data centers here in Kentucky is we have merchant data centers. And what those are not the Silicon Valley coming in and saying, we're going to build this data center and then we're going to negotiate with the utility. It's not that at all. The Oldham County data center went away. The people in Oldham County didn't want it, and that's gone away. So that's 600 megawatts of power that LG&E KU doesn't need now, right? Because that was a high up case in their queue, so they said, right? So that's 600 megawatts of power. The 402 megawatts of power that's in Louisville that they're working on, that is a merchant data center. So that is a Louisvillian named Steve Poe who wants to build out a data center and wants his companies to lock in a long-term lease with somebody from Silicon Valley. He's not stupid, right? He's going to get that long-term lease. So he'll have the long-term lease, but I can guarantee you it's longer than 15 years, right? Because you don't make the investment Steve Poe's going to invest in for that long. So what I am also concerned about is the transparency of the contracts. Because I would love for the commission to say, we at least need to see the contracts, because what these data centers are doing is they're coming into communities and they're saying to the community officials, you have to have an NDA. We're not going to tell you what the rate looks like. And that won't work for consumers, right? You guys have to protect us, please, from not knowing how much of the cost is actually on the data center and how much cost is on us. Thank you very much.
Okay, next, Patty Meyer.
Hi, I'm Patty Meyer. I live at 687 Springhurst Drive here in Lexington. Nice job, staff, and thank you all for your good explanation. I got the spot on the website and sent it to people. I am going with questions because I loved it when you said you can ask questions, but we're not going to have a dialogue. We're not going to have answers. Thanks for protecting consumers in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It's a lot of work. One question I have really was asked in greater detail by the previous speaker. How will building these facilities support consumers/ratepayers? That's a question that I think needs to be asked and answered in detail. And who specifically will benefit from the building of these facilities to support possible data centers? Who specifically is going to benefit from that whole game? As a ratepayer and a taxpayer and proud citizen of the Commonwealth, I do not want to see public infrastructure that avoids green alternatives. I myself don't have children, but I ask that you please guide the utilities to examine options for energy futures. We've got to think about the children, the grandchildren, the future communities that will exist here in Kentucky. And of course, a shorter term concern is people who are suffering in all kinds of ways all over the Commonwealth, and this will be difficult for them. And I ask you to think about what will the benefit be to them, and if not obvious, maybe get more information about answering the question, who exactly will benefit from these? This adds to the transparency concern. Thanks a lot, guys.
Mr. Hawkins, it's Britton or come right up and tell us. Thank you.
My name's Brayton Hawkins. I live at 107 Front 9 Drive in Elizabethtown. And I also share the sentiment that I agree that the amount of electricity used is going to increase in the future, and I hate to see that it's going to be met by natural gas. But I figured other people would voice those concerns, so I thought I'd bring up something that I didn't think was covered yet. If we look back maybe like the 1950s, 1960s, when computers were the new hot technology, it was these big companies that had developed the computers. So what they had done at the time is lease out time to those computers. So you'd be a user and you'd buy time from a big server center, from a mainframe, so to speak. And they believed that it'd always be that way. They believed that it'd always be that consumers would buy computer time from the big companies. But as technology advanced, personal computers came around, and that allowed individuals to own their own computer and have that power that computers give you. And I think that a similar route's going to be taken with these data centers with AI. I believe that once this technology becomes more mature, it's going to be more accessible to an individual. So I believe that once AI develops further and further, that these data centers won't be needed because it's going to be hosted locally on individuals' computers. So I don't disagree that this increase in load isn't going to happen. I believe it's going to be from the private sector instead of the public sector. So I think putting all this resources into this one facility that, one, they haven't even like confirmed that it's going to be there, and two, we haven't confirmed that it's going to be needed. So, thank you.
Sarah Reeves.
Hi, my name's Sarah Reeves. I live at 333 East Lowry Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, and I am a ratepayer to KU. I think I want to say first that as a full-time single mom in a single income household, every time the utility rates raise, I'm making choices between a variety of things. And I think there are a lot of people who are experiencing that same kind of anxiety that maybe can't be here at 6 o'clock on a Monday night. And I hope they can get their comments to you, because like bills are getting tighter and tighter. The minimum wage has been $7.25 in Kentucky since 2009. So when we talk about reasonable rates, I feel like the entirety of the picture has to be there. That if we're passing these increases in rates onto working Kentucky families, then can we afford them? And I think when we talk about the reasonability of it too, looking at the full lifespan of gas plants, there's the direct cost and the indirect cost when we're looking at climate change. When I was getting ready to come here and we were driving over here, we were listening to coverage of the flooding out of Texas. And I think everyone's heart goes out to that community. And to be looking at proposing billions of dollars of investment when there are costs associated with continued climate crisis, and the ICPP has told us that we need to stop investing in fossil fuel generation, then what is the full lifespan of the cost to us as ratepayers? Not like just the rates alone, but to our future. And I think about what other people have said here. We're thinking about our kids. I mean, are these going to be stranded assets? If you look at the market and you look at renewable energy and where the prices sit right now, if we're talking about the reasonableness and the cost of this, and you project that out 5 or 10 years, there just doesn't seem anything reasonable about billions of dollars in investments in gas infrastructure at this moment when you talk about the full cycle of this and all the other factors at play in it. Thank you.
So that was the last person who indicated yes. But anyone else who would like to speak, you have an opportunity. We'll stay here as long as you guys want to talk. If anyone who indicated no wants to change their mind and now wants to speak. Yeah, come right up. Tell us your name and address.
Tracy Criswell, 3401 Sandmark Court, Lexington. So I don't really have anything to add. I just want to make sure that another person is saying that I just think this is very premature, that we should not be investing in speculation, especially with something so environmentally destructive. And also, it just seems like the people are getting hit from every direction by everything, whether, Medicaid cuts, SNAP cuts, whatever. We're just being hit by everything. And this is just one more thing to add to make us struggle. And I just hope that's really strongly considered. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Well, so if you didn't want to speak tonight, like I said, you still have plenty of opportunities. Email us, write us, give public comment in person on the day of the hearing, or you can sign up the day before the hearing to give virtual public comment. This has been recorded. It'll be placed in the record. The written comments that you submitted tonight will get placed in our records. You can see them on our website. Just look under the case number and you can see everything that's been filed in the case, including the public comments. And if there's nothing further, I appreciate everyone coming out and certainly appreciate everyone remaining respectful and civil to one another. And I'll call a close to the meeting.